Okay, so here's some follow-up questions that we have here is how did Rashid view the connection with Eunice? Like, since they did know each other and were connected, was this a platonic thing? Was this, an arrangement where she was just strictly being like in a pastoral role, like a pastor's role? Or was there something more? We have the Death Rebirth card, 5 of Cups. So I sense with that, there was some sort of change here with this dynamic between the both of them. Something happened. Some kind of major change happened. We have the Death Rebirth card. And that card represents the time period of like October 21st to November 20th. And I believe she got married sometime in autumn of last year, if my memory serves me correct. And so this, in terms of Rashid's view of the connection with Eunice, something changed and it made him sad and despondent. That's making sense as I recall the last readings. There was like a conflict I picked up on. A parasite card had come up. Someone not dealing with the change. Okay. And we have Mother. Not necessarily like a romantic situation, but certainly like she was 30 years old. She's 30 years old. And Rashid is 28. So they're like sister and brother, more so than a mother role. But because she was like leaps and bounds ahead in her life, I don't know if he has children or not, but she had a daughter, and she was a professional, and she was a councilwoman, and she was a woman of the church, preparing to be a pastor for her own church. And so that could put her in a position of like a mother role. And I feel like something was coming to an end, a change, something happening. Disappointing news. Accessory after the fact. Accessory after this change. Something happening after this change. Blackmail or extortion. That could just simply be the plotting to, and the kind of like the harassing part. This card came up before. This caregiver or helper role. So remember I was saying this is like a mother role here. Like, it's not so much romantic to me. I suppose it could be, but it's more so like what you can do for me. What can I get from you? What can I get from you? And that changing, that being a disappointment and realizing that some things in life needs to change. This could be Eunice saying no more. I'm not dealing with this anymore. I'm cutting this off. This is done. And that could have triggered a response with Rashid to make him susceptible to thoughts of harm. Could be thoughts of self-harm and thoughts of harm to another human being. The person who was actually helping him and guiding him and making recommendations to him and reading scripture with this guy. But I cannot ignore the murder for hire card that came up and this card. Like there's Like maybe the disappointment is not so much tied to a change for her, but something changed that she was just like, she saw something disappointing or realized something, and something had to end in order for this new beginning to really take off. That new beginning could have been her going off on her own. This is why I was like, it is complex. The prosecutor actually classified this as a, how did they word it? A complex and extensive case. And I sense that it is. I sense that someone knew her whereabouts, and it wasn't only Rashid that knew. It was someone else. Maybe they felt like she was going to blackmail or extort, had information. I don't know. Okay. How did Eunice view this connection with Rashid? Queen of Swords in reverse. Two of Pentacles, having to make a decision. Really juggling and having to juggle through what to do about this situation. Having to juggle on what to do, make a decision, and have been struggling to make this decision for at least a couple of years. Like, do I cut this person off? Do I tell him what it is? Or I tell him like it is? And so, yeah, maybe he's not the only parasite involved in this situation either. I get a sense she was fed up and wanting to step down from something. Maybe step down from being his mentor, or step down from, leading that part of the church. I don't know. How is she feeling about the connection, Spirit? I just get a sense that I don't think she really thought that things would end up the way they were. Again, we got this card kind of indicating the dynamic of mother-child, someone who's kind of young or young-minded. That's her view towards Rashid. But that he was taking something from her. Maybe even at one point threatened to assault or threatened to hurt her. Hired help. That's an interesting card. And false accusations. Initially, there was a magnetic pull between the both of them. Her to help him. And him to receive the help. And things were going great. He may be scapegoated though with this false accusations card. Not to say that he's the shooter, but scapegoated because there was somebody else who had a grander, bigger motive here. But this was something that she was contemplating in terms of her connection with Rashid. She was thinking about, do I continue on? do I let this go? And she had been struggling with that because, that went against her beliefs, that went against what she believed in. She believed in, building a church and being there through thick and thin. And she also felt a way about helping people and continuing to help people, even when it may not have been the situation that would have been most ideal for her. But she was determined to keep going. I don't know how else to say it. But then there was something that came up in early autumn with this Two of Pentacles, some kind of choice that needed to be made that dealt with finances or give and take of something. And she was determined to make this decision and move forward. And as a result, I think this is how we ended up here. The false accusations is an interesting card. Like, could it mean that this gentleman is falsely accused? I suppose, but I do feel like they got the right guy in terms of the shooter. I just also wonder, what does law enforcement mean by this situation running really deep? All right. So now I wanted to ask, what was the reality of the connection between the both of them in the past? What was the actual reality? We have Three of Cups. And what was the reality of their connection, or the connection between the both of them in the present? What was the actual reality? The Emperor. So, what I get a sense here, in the past, it was partnership, good times, fellowship, coming together, a partnership. But it also, with the cups, it can represent some sort of emotional ties in the beginning, in the past. Towards the end, yeah. So here, taking a chance, risking leap of faith. So this was a part of her faith journey to do this mission work of going and doing outreach to, people in the community, having them join the church, go to Bible study, help them get their life on track, mentor them, be there for them. So this was a part of her faith. And yeah, that was part of her faith. And so they took a chance, both of them, and it was starting out good. However, something it happened, the Emperor, in terms of power position, power plays, bad news, negative information, and finding out. Perhaps Rashid finding out some bad information or bad news about maybe her getting married. Maybe the husband has something to say. Maybe, see, this is the thing. Perhaps the husband. See, they asked the family. I don't know if they asked her husband if she ever mentioned about this guy or mentoring this guy, or maybe this guy is starting to become a problem for her. But somehow there's some kind of bad news, negative information, finding out something. Could be something associated deeper with the church. Bad news. They finding out something. Her wanting to leave or something like that. And start off and strike out on her own. And knowing that she's in an increasing volatile situation because Rashid kept taking from someone that he felt like he could just continue to take from. And this becoming a growing problem. And something else is tied, allegedly, to him between the church. Okay, so now we want to know, and before we move on, this card jump. Furious, angry, rage. So somebody was enraged by this bad news. This negative information. Someone was like, oh no. Could it have been him? Yes, it could totally be him that was outraged. Maybe the well was going to be cut dry, or maybe she said she was no longer going to be associated with that church. She was moving on, and therefore she won't be able to help him in that capacity anymore. I don't know. But someone became very furious and fixated. It's the energy I'm picking up on here. A witness said that the person at the scene, just before the shooting happened, he shot at her like 14 times. There was an exchange of words between the suspect and Eunice. And Eunice was in her car, in her vehicle. Her vehicle, I believe, was still in the drive gear. So what was the exchange of words about? Two of Wands. What was the exchange about? Ten of Swords. See, that's what I'm saying about a decision of being cut off, a painful ending, and it finally really coming to an end. And interestingly for me, the Swords represents the timing of months, the season of winter, and Ten of Swords represents the end of winter. And when her life was tragically taken, it was February 1st, which is definitely entering that end of winter territory. So there was some sort of choice about that was conveyed and discussed 2 weeks, up to 2 weeks prior. And so this conversation had been going on for 2 weeks, is what I'm picking up on here. Wands representing the timing of weeks for me. And it was about a painful ending. Someone walking away, and other people, a flock here, feels betrayed. Someone felt betrayed by someone else walking away. And I sensed it was her walking away and having to struggle to make the choice to move on, to go, set her sights worldwide at some point. We see that with the globe here, and someone really taking issue with that. And thus did the ultimate betrayal to her. The ultimate betrayal. Okay. Now we're going to ask, what was the alleged motive? What was the motive? What was ultimately the motive? Hanged Man. Someone either felt like they were being sacrificed, or someone felt like they needed to sacrifice her. Emotional connection. What was the motive? Okay, so let's just talk about these for a moment. We've got the Ten of Cups. This is like an emotional element here. The Hanged Man is about someone feeling stifled and suspended, like they can't move forward because of someone moving forward, moving on, an ending happening in someone's life, and thereby she's going to be embarking on a new beginning, and someone feeling suspended, left behind. A sacrifice. A sacrifice. This is one of the key meanings to the Hanged Man. And these are the oracle cards that jumped. We have parent. Maybe the father ahead of something or someone. That ties in with the Emperor, right? And I'm getting a sense it's someone other than Rashid. It's someone else. law enforcement had indicated, and I pay attention to all the details. The other day I heard them say that they are still very much actively investigating, that this case is complex and extensive, and that they're still investigating. That really stands out to me. And this is an interesting card. We have social media. There are clues in perhaps Rashid's social media going back as far as 2 years ago on getting a bit more understanding about who he is, what he was up to, what he's doing. Social media also could speak to her and, on her social media, and also could speak to people inside the church. I don't know. Social media as the trial starts to move forward, or as the legal system starts to progress, social media may start becoming a big deal in this case. There are people who are interested in it from, the public service angle. There are people who are interested in her case because she was a mom and she was brutally gunned down. She was, preparing to be a pastor, a councilwoman. There's all these different angles. She's just newly married, so it has the propensity to become sensationalized over social media. So that could be what this card is speaking to. Terminated. Something ending, someone being terminated, someone terminating something, a contract, a relationship. Aiding and abetting. Again, we have that coming up. We have two parties here. Accessory after the fact, aiding and abetting. There may be some information that comes out later that may be a parent of, or someone who is kind of seen in the eyes of the suspect, or someone involved closely with what happened to her. They could be protected or helped by someone who's like in a parental role. So the motive feels very much like someone feeling a strong sense of betrayal by a decision that needed to be made, being left behind, and that being a problem. She's going after her happily ever after, and someone is feeling left behind. And, that's what I'm sensing here. That's what I'm sensing. Let me see if I have. And to that end, let me just say this. Because I'm picking up on energies that it's not just him, but there's some kind of other entity or person that's outside of Rashid that could be very much responsible for this. I am going to say that at this point I'm going to reserve my opinion that it is complex, and it's just not him. He definitely is the shooter. I intuitively strongly pick up on that. The police got the right person with regards to that. But will the police get it right in terms of being able to navigate just how complex the situation really and truly goes? Okay. Someone feeling betrayed by her momentum, her movement, her progression. All right. I'm going to pause here, scoot these over so I can make room for the last question I want to ask. Question: does law enforcement feel there are others involved? And why did the prosecutor call it a complex and extensive case? We have the Six of Pentacles. This card came up in the Tarot and Oracle reading I did on this case. The Six of Pentacles. It came up in a different deck, but same card. And this card does affirm that, yeah, they're exploring some things as it relates to like other people involvement, trying to see if truly he acted alone. I mean, I do get a sense that they believe that, you show this person who's a giver and someone who's a taker, and seeing how all the dots are connected here. And if you look carefully, it answers our question. It says yes to the question of, does law enforcement feel there are others involved? Yeah, so that tells me, yeah, they do. I'm going to pull from this deck. Why does the prosecutor call this a complex and extensive case? They're being very, very guarded and careful because they know how intricately involved things are, and they are trying not to reveal too much to those who are close to her because, you know, they are part of the church. Not saying that they have any culpability, her family, but because of the fact that there are cultural differences and that this is tied to the church, out of respect for that, law enforcement is just really trying to keep everything close to the vest. But they have a belief that things run deep, and they're just exploring the different ways of how deep it runs. A partnership of some sort, someone, you know, in conflict with her. But it's a party of two. And we see that at least two main culprits. We saw that here with the accessory after the fact card. Blackmail or extortion would indicate that there's more than one person involved in some sort of conspiracy to extort or take from or guilt trip or blackmail or whatever you want to call it. And there was another card. We have hired help, caregiver, or helper. I feel like I'm missing it. Where is it? Oh, there it is. It's right there in front of me. Aiding and abetting. So to me, there's this sense that they are looking at, you know, this like complex enterprise with the church and having to be very careful about what is revealed to loved ones, what is revealed to church members. Like the family is usually with church members, like the pastor. So law enforcement can't really have these kind of conversations with the family. Therefore, the family has to stay in the dark because law enforcement has to investigate thoroughly and rule out the involvement of others related to some sort of conflict that was going on 5 weeks preceding February 1st of when she was shot. And so there was an argument or a decision being made 2 weeks before, but 5 weeks prior. So that takes us, 3 weeks prior to a decision needing to be made. There was some sort of conflict that came to a head about somebody giving, receiving charity work, or someone feeling like they're doing things for charity and it's, being taken advantage of, something along those lines. So that is why it is called a complex and extensive case by the prosecution, and why the family has been having to be in the dark, because the people who they have to explore and rule out are attached to the family by some way or another. And this is all alleged, of course, and no one's saying that any of the church members, aside from this gentleman, Mr. Bynum, who's now, I don't think he's actively going to their church, but he was a church member. Maybe he's just the only one. But law enforcement is definitely looking at how deep does this run. Before I let y'all go, I'm going to pull from, just to see if there's anything else about law enforcement. They know it's targeted, that's what I'll say there. Denial. Someone's denying involvement. Could be the gentleman. Oh my God, he kind of looks like him, doesn't he? Yikes. It's like the second or third time I've had that happen with the decks that I make, and then a suspect ends up kind of favoring one of the people in the cards. But he could be denying it, denying involvement of other people, denying involvement because he's going to be kind of like a fall guy. He has like 37 different charges on his record over the years, but nothing, I don't think, I mean, there were weapons charges, but nothing of violence. So this is quite the departure. A lot of his charges were related to some level of fraud or like credit card fraud or things of that nature. So I don't know. It's interesting. Denial. This is also about maybe the family being in denial about things. I don't know. It's just interesting to me. It's just interesting to me. I think that they may be in denial about how deep this runs. She was very much targeted. We know that this was a shooting, but there may have been threats in the past that the family doesn't know about, but they may have intuitively felt like something was going on, and she was carrying the weight of a dispute on her shoulders for at least 5 weeks. I mean, the wands represents also the season of spring, but the timing of 5 weeks as well. So there you go, 5 of Wands. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say about this. I pray for justice for any and all who are involved in what happened to Eunice is brought to justice, and that's what I'm praying for. I'm praying for the strength of her family during this most difficult time. I am very grateful to hear that an arrest was made, and now we're just looking at, how long will it take? Actually, let me do this. I am curious, the elements of time, Spirit, is there anything else you wish to share with us about the elements of time with this case of like maybe something happening or developing, or key time periods? That's too many. It's too many. But let's see. We've got fall, autumn. We talked about that. We said, something significant happening during October to November. Also, there could be major developments in terms of the legal proceedings during this time frame, so look out for that. We have within 6 months, so within 6 months, there could be some key evidence leading up to the crime. Within 6 months after the crime, this also could be when things may start to move legally within 6 months, and that things may not really come full circle for at least 10 to 12 months, or basically 10 months to a year. But that there's something percolating also within maybe 18 months, 2 years. 2 years of juggling, having to pay Rob Paul to pay Peter or something like that. I don't know. It's just interesting to me. So these are the elements of time. This is from my this time oracle that I made recently. So yeah, we'll just end it here because, there's not much more to add. I do sense that this runs deeper than just Mr. Rashid, allegedly, and I'm curious to see how this all unfolds and develops. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And do me a favor on your way out, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you all so much for joining me. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye for now.